Hello and welcome, good evening, to the new Iveco S Way. Well, I say new, it's been around for about 6 or so months now. Yeah, the boss got one in for a demo for a couple of weeks, and given the reputation of it, all the other drivers were a bit like, nah, not really. I myself was the same way, but since there was a truck, a brand new one, newish, one on offer, I thought I'll at least take it out for 1 week and give a review of sorts. Since it's the end of the week, pretty much, I think it's about time we get on to giving the review, I suppose. Starting off inside, since I'm already here, probably first thing that's most obvious, it's got some LED lights. They're nice and bright. They light up everything. Don't really struggle to see much like I do on the MAN. The little tiny lights up here are a little bit on the dim side. They're all controlled off this panel here. Turn them off, turn them off. Night lights. Lovely blue colour as opposed to your typical red colour. So yeah, LED lights, I like them, they're good. Starting at the top, we've got a skylight. It's got a blackout blind and a screen to keep the light out. Don't know if it's standard or not, or if this is an optional extra just because it's a slightly fancier S Way for the purposes of being a demo truck. But yeah, it doesn't feel like they've gone as high end as they could have. But yeah, I don't come across many trucks that have skylights in them, so it's a little bit unique for me. I keep the blind shut because I'm not really used to having that light shining in through the roof. It's a bit weird. So yeah, I've kept that blind shut for the whole time. So for me personally, it's not that useful because I'm so used to not having one, to the point that it feels a bit weird to have one. Coming down, fairly standard setup, 3 lockers up top. The middle one is actually quite a big one. The side one's a little bit smaller than the MANs, but wider in a certain direction. I think it's different, but somehow still perfectly adequate. 2 cubby holes, as you can see by everything spilling out and there not being a huge amount. Just got a few little tools in that one. These are significantly smaller than the MANs. I haven't been able to fit anywhere near as much in these ones as I would like. And the lip is not particularly big on these, although saying that, having been over all the bumps and lumps and things that I have this week, nothing has fallen out so far. So even though that's loose tools, there's nothing really to hold them in there. They can bounce out whenever they like. But yeah, they haven't so far. But yeah, could do with being slightly larger. It's not like there's lacking space. There's plenty of room to expand, surely. Unless there's wiring looms or something hidden underneath all that stuff, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's a downside for me. Need a little bit more space in those cubby holes. Coming around to the back, as you can see, proper bunk, actual full-on frame, mesh, proper what do you call it, mattress. That would be a lot better if you were double manning, but I never do and don't. But yeah, the MAN truck that I've got is just a piece of fabric and you pull a frame out. And that's that. So probably not as ideal for double manning. Not that I double man anyway, it's kind of just any other storage area. I know that you can get rid of these and replace them with more lockers, like what you get here, 3 lockers like that, just where the bunk goes. Which we may start doing or not, I'm not sure. I think the idea has been batted around, I've heard recently. But we'll find out in due course if that actually happens or not. But yeah, if you do double man, seemingly a proper bunk as standard. Staying in the bunk area for brief moment. Yeah, lots of little cubby holes. Some 1, 2, and the top bit there for 3 that side. Same this side, 1, 2, 3. A fairly decent amount of controls from the bunk area. What do you got? Night heater, sunroof, radio on off, window controls for both driver and passenger side, door locks, and the lights again. Turn those off, turn them back on, and you'll cycle through them. So night light, main light, and then off. So if I turn those back on again, there we go. And also, finally, whilst we're back here, there are a number of USB ports. In fact, they're all over the place. So we've got that wire there, there's 2 that side, 2 that side again in the same sort of place. We got 1 down there to the left of the dashboard, 1 to the right, and a 12 volt. There's also 12 volt somewhere around here, that side, over there. You've even got 2 on the front of the fridge there as well. So yes, USB plugs galore everywhere. I haven't seen any up around here anywhere, but yeah, plenty everywhere else. Finally, for this portion, there's various curtains. You've got the ones around the front there, and one to cut the bunk off, as you can or can't see here. I don't know if the camera's very good, but these curtains are wafer thin. There's nothing to them. The quality does not feel super duper good, but they do work. They do keep the light out, and yeah, there's minimal to no light bleed sort of around the edges or underneath them. It usually keeps it pretty dark. That is a thing on the MAN that I've got. That is a little bit of a problem. Light sort of creeps in around cracks and crevices all over the place, despite the fact that the curtains themselves are nice and thick and feel fairly decent quality. Another thing, I don't know if these ones are as bad. No, they're fairly smooth, but these ones round here are quite stiff and hard to move. So doing it in one smooth action is difficult to impossible nearly sometimes. Whether that's just because it's brand new or they genuinely are that stiff and will remain so, I don't know. But yeah, time would tell if you kept it long enough, but I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. Also, before I forget, these restraints are fairly simple. It's just like a dog clip or whatever you call that style of connector, and it just loops around everything. It's not elasticated, there's no way of adjusting it. It's a single piece of strap, and it doesn't really hold everything particularly tightly, which is a little bit of a shame, but there we go. Somewhat of a bizarre feature to me is the electric front windscreen. You know, like in Ford cars you get the little tiny thin strips of metal that go through it to heat it up in the winter if you get ice on it. This Iveco has a windscreen like that, which I find a little bit bizarre, because if you're tramping in it and it's that cold, you'd have the night heater on, and the night heater keeps it warm in here, and by extension it keeps the windows warm, and that prevents frost getting on the windscreens. So unless you're day cabbing it in here, that's kind of a pointless feature. It also makes replacing the windscreen, if you get a massive stone chip or anything, a lot more difficult and a lot more expensive, which, considering a normal typical windscreen in a truck is not cheap to begin with, seems a bit of a bizarre choice to me, really. I'm not sure why they've done that. Fridge down here to the left, and then by the side of it you've got a nice storage cupboard, which is what the MAN is lacking, really, because they put the fridge in the middle. But yeah, both ways of doing things have their plus and minuses, such as with the MAN you can sit sideways in the seat and open the fridge, whereas in the Iveco you can't do that because your legs get in the way. It's also a bit weird because the screen turns off once you've got it going, and so it's initially hard to discern whether it's running or not, or if you're not sure it's running, unlike the MAN, which it constantly displays all the time, so you know that it's running and doing its thing. One problem that I do have with this fridge in particular, which will probably extend to all S Ways, is that the cooling element runs just around the back of the fridge, which means that the front up here can tend to be slightly warmer. So I'm not sure if it's chilling everything down equally or as good as it could be. 'Cause it's a problem I've never had in the MAN, but the last bottle of milk I had in here the other day actually went off within 24 hours of buying it. So I'm going to see tomorrow if the bottle of milk that I do have in there is still good, or if that's gone a bit weird as well. Not too sure on the fridge. It's nice that it doesn't freeze everything like the MAN has a tendency to do, but I would like my stuff to be cold as well. Moving on to the dash area now. Lots of nice mechanical controls, the old style. That is my personal preference, that's the way I like it. I'm not too sure about all these newer trucks with the LCD screens everywhere. Maybe I'll like it once I get a go on one, if I ever do. Who knows, but yeah, me personally, I'm a little bit old-fashioned to some degree. Yeah, I prefer mechanical dials and switches. But the little trip computer in the middle has menus and displays galore. I don't think I've ever seen so many. You get all bits of info about everything almost. Yeah, name a menu that you can think of, this Iveco's probably got it. Handbrake on the dash, where I like to see it. Yeah, it's probably one of my biggest irks with the MAN. It's got this little island right here with the handbrake on, and it takes up valuable floor space, which is an inconvenience, but that's the way they've gone about designing it. Infotainment system, it has a fair few little bits in it. Integrated sat-nav, a media player to read media off stuff, which can be done via these two USBs, or I assume that one, because it has two USB imports, and I know that this is one, so I'm going to assume that's the other one. Your radio, it's got a DAB, most places or most trucks seem to. This one does, my MAN does. I assume that it's becoming standard more and more, even in cars nowadays. Apps, kind of pointless menu, it just displays what you can see at the bottom here. Compass, quirky, but again kind of pointless because it only tells you your direction to the nearest 45 degrees, so what you'd infer from this compass, I don't know. Phone, that's cool. It has, I don't know if it's integrated or it can detect it, but if you plug your iPhone into this USB port down here, it engages Apple CarPlay, so you can play podcasts, music, YouTube if you're parked up and sat and you want to watch it and play the sound out on the good truck speakers instead of your phone speaker. Some vehicle stuff as well. A couple of extra menus, although the amount of menus on the dashboard, I don't really see what else you could possibly get. I've had a brief look. It gives you your driver score, like how harsh braking and everything is. It doesn't appear that it's going to be working at the moment because I've got the ignition off, so I'll ignore that. But one good thing about the infotainment system is the speakers. The speakers are incredibly good. The sounds are rich and full. You get all the bass notes that I've never heard on the MAN, certainly. Whether it's the radio or having the phone plugged into the USB, yeah, really good quality sound that comes out of that, which is One of the few good points I'd probably have to say about this truck. Yeah, cannot fault the sound system at all. Probably one of the biggest annoyances I have about this truck is that due to the ignition key not being the key, you just put it in a slot like that, which is similar to the Mercedes, but the Mercedes you can push the start button and it will turn on the radio system. The Iveco doesn't appear to have that function. You either have to have the whole ignition on and then the radio will be on, or you push that button to turn it on, and then after about 10 to 20 minutes, I'm not sure exactly how long, it'll then turn itself off. Whereas normally with a key you could just turn it the first click and then just the radio will come on. Again, like the Mercedes, I've already said, you push the button once and it will turn the radio on. For some reason the Iveco just does not do that. Don't know why, but it's very annoying having to turn the radio on every 10-20 minutes. Oh, there it goes. Sit back, relax. Oh, there it goes again. So yeah, that becomes very tiring very quickly indeed. I do not like that feature, or lack of, at all. So yeah, that's a big minus in my book. Another bit that I don't like about this dashboard is the lack of space. So you've got a cupboard bit at the very bottom, this little tray area here, and a little bit at the top, and this small cubby hole here, but that's about it, which is not enough, especially compared to the MANs. You've got two drawers, a little cubby hole thing, then a tray slot, then the top of the dash. So you've got loads more space, more drawers, and then as you can see here, this big bit of the dash as it projects out, it covers up most of this shelf. It does go all the way back, and then they've covered up a huge bit of it. So yeah, there's that book there, and that slots all the way back to it, so you've lost a load of space unless your item that you're going to be putting on it is relatively small. It's kind of a useless shelf really. And again, yeah, I've got so much stuff and I've run out of room to the point that I'm actually storing my paperwork on the passenger seat, because I literally have nowhere else to put it, because this cupboard has already got too many bits of paper in it already, and bits and bobs, and the shelf has stuff on it already. So yeah, could do with a lot more shelf bits and bobs to store stuff in the dash area. But despite the way it looks like it juts out at you, there feels like plenty of space. And yeah, don't have a problem with space and reach out everywhere. It might also help with the fact that because I'm used to the MAN, because I've been in it for the last 6 months, it has this little folding bunk that sits across here that feels like it encroaches into your space quite a bit, and this tucks up and out the way, and it sort of frees up all this area and makes it feel a lot bigger. But I think the roof might actually be taller in this as well, because if I stand up on the driver's seat I still have headroom. So yeah, I'm not sure if I could do that on the MAN or not. But yeah, I think that's everything inside, good and bad, indifferent. So now to the outside. Moving outside the truck now. First thing, I do like LED lights all round. Side lights, headlights, rear lights, reverse lights, indicators, yeah, you name it, it's an LED. Full beams, yeah, literally all the lights are LEDs. Lockers, yeah, there's outside lockers, 4 actually, 2 on each side, an upper one and a lower one. The upper one is the larger of the 2, and you can get access to both sides of the truck through the bunk. The top one is opened inside the cab here. It is a rather cheap looking piece of wire, whereas the bottom one is a little tab lever looking thing, which can be opened not really outside, but you can't open it from the inside either. It's like on the side panel bit, where the door seals around and covers it over. But 4 lockers, yeah, I've not seen that before. Always been 2. So it's yeah, interesting to see 4. A lot of space on the outside to store stuff, which is more than can be said in here, or certainly around the dash area anyway. The fit and finish of the lockers is leaves a lot to be desired. The lower ones are very plasticky feeling, and a quick slam rarely ever results in them shutting. You have to give it the beans, shall we say, to make them shut and stay locked. And even when they do lock, they don't really sound or feel or give any sort of clue that they have locked, so you're always having to check. Meanwhile, the upper ones, most of the time when you throw them shut, they do shut. Occasionally they don't. The one on the driver's side doesn't fit flush, and it constantly looks like it hasn't locked properly because it sticks out a little bit. The passenger side one does sit flush, and I've never seen that before on any other brand or make of truck. Yeah, Iveco's reputation of being a bit cheap and slapdash is very evident on the lockers, that's for certain. At the back of the cab, you've got the sort of aerodynamic wings that come off the back of the cab. Absolutely huge. I've never seen such big wings on a truck. It does make the cab look incredibly huge from the outside. Yeah, and because of them big wings, it means the trailer sits a little bit further back. Whether that's where it would normally sit, I don't know, because this is a sliding fifth wheel on this truck. But there is a huge amount of space to get up onto the catwalk, put the Susie lines on the trailer, take them off again. Yeah, space is not an issue there, there's plenty of it. Just a shame the catwalk is a little bit on the thin side. Yeah, it doesn't quite reach back as far as the trailer, so potentially a misstep and you could twist an ankle or fall down a gap if you're not careful. The front grille, and it's not just me that thought this. When a guy saw it the other day, he said that the front grille looked very Scania-esque. Yeah, it's very, very similar, or design inspired. Look like they're kind of twins of each other, especially with the front grille that comes down at the front. I've only ever really seen that on Scanias. There may be 1 or 2 other models that do it, maybe Volvos. Not really driven them that much, so I can't say for definite. But yeah, remarkably similar to the new style Scanias. Nice big AdBlue tank on this. It's what, 35 litres on this, but for some bizarre reason it doesn't seem to last any longer than what the MAN does, and that's a 27 litre tank I've managed to get in that one from empty. Potentially that poor economy could be due to the fact that this is a fairly new truck. It only had 14,000 k when I picked it up, and by the feel of it, it hadn't done a huge amount of work. It's been shocked this week, I think, doing all the work that it's done. The engine and everything seems to be a lot smoother and better towards the end of the week than when I picked it up, or started using it, at least at the start of the week. So yeah, it could be something that settles down with time, because yeah, it gets through the AdBlue quite quick. The exhaust box, is another area that Iveco clearly looked like they've saved money by reducing its size. It's a bit of a weird shape, but the most obvious thing is that the very back of it looks like they've forgot to put a panel on it. So you've got this box and then there's big open area and you can just see the exhaust and all the heat shielding around it. So it looks a little bit bizarre. Yeah, like I said, it looks like they've forgotten or missed a panel off the back of it. But that's just how they are. A strange design choice, but saves money, I suppose. But yeah, it doesn't look right. As I've said with the lockers, it also applies to the doors as well. But yeah, everything just closes with a rather dull thud. Nothing closes with any sort of definitiveness or a positive noise. So you close everything and you kind of feel that you've got to go back and just check everything again to make sure that it actually has locked. And following on from that, the door lock itself, again, sounds a bit cheap or overly simplified. Whenever you lock the doors, instead of this complicated mechanism sound or a positive sound that the doors have locked, there's a very quiet, subtle tick sound. I've had a go at trying to get it on camera, but I don't know if it's loud enough. But yeah, if it's quiet you can hear it, but any kind of background noise and you've got no chance. So you're kind of not sure if the door has locked or not. I mean, the indicator lights flash, but I go off the sound most of the time, and being so quiet and subtle, it can be easily missed. Whether you'd call that cheapness or whatnot is a personal opinion, I suppose, but I prefer my door locks to give off a sound so I can hear that it has actually locked. For the first time that I'm aware of, out of all of the different models of Ivecos that I've driven over the years, the Daily, which is a little 7.5 ton van, Euro Cargo, 18 and 26 tonner, I think it was a Stralis 4x2 tractor unit. All of those, as far as I'm aware, have fixed mirrors. I've never been able to find any sort of adjustment on them. But finally, with the S Way, we have electric adjustable mirrors. Just the 4 main ones, as most of the manufacturers do. I mean, you get the odd one, does the side mirror and sometimes even the spot mirror at the front. I know my MAN, the little blind spot mirror above the window, that's also electrically adjustable. But yeah, not on this case, but to have electrically adjustable mirrors at all on an Iveco is a first for me. So hooray at last. The windscreen wipers up front are another area that look like corners have been cut and money has been saved, because when you use them they don't stop at the very bottom position. They go through the cycle, they come down and then pop up ever so slightly before stopping. And I don't know, I think maybe 1 or 2 other trucks I've driven that do that. But yeah, Ivecos seem to be common at doing that. I mean, all the ones that I've driven, not all of them have done that. So maybe again it's just a fit and finish problem. If this was one of the first S Ways on the road, niggles and technical issues like that can happen. So yeah, and plus it's the only one that I've driven. so maybe it's not all S Ways that are like that, but it is a problem on this one. And since it's supposed to be a demonstrator and showcase the best that this model is supposed to be capable of, it's something that stands out really, and doesn't inspire me, shall we say. One good thing about this Iveco is the ramps at the back. So if you follow me on Instagram, how long ago was it now? Week, 2-3 weeks ago maybe, you would have seen that I posted a picture showing the rear ramps of the MAN. They're like slowly getting bent outwards, and the tops of them are getting worn away because it constantly keeps clashing with the undersides of the trailers and grinding away and getting bent and caught on the trailers. Whereas on this, the S Way, the ramps are a bit more lower profile. Like you can still get the trailer to sort of bump up and clear the mud flaps on the wheels so that you're not damaging them. But even on the low deck trailers, which generally have lower clearance under them anyway, you still get a good 5 centimeters or so, 2 inches of clearance. As on the MAN, it's half that, maybe. So yeah, I haven't noticed, at least, a clash between this, or the ramps, and the trailer, whereas the MAN pretty much does it every day, or most days at the very least. But again, the ramps are an area where it looks like they've saved money, because as I've said, at most this truck is 6 months old and the ramps are already covered in rust. I mean, yeah, it's 6 months through winter, so there's salt and stuff getting thrown around, but again, still 6 months to look that rusty, it doesn't look good. That covers the review type bit. Fit and finish, features, inside, outside, good, bad, ugly. I suppose I should now set the cameras up in their usual position and take it for a little spin, see how it drives. We'll take it out for a little spin now so you can see what it's like. There's a button on the dashboard here, push and hold that to get the ignition on. And a bit like cars nowadays, we have to push the clutch in to get it going. You have to do this the same on this, but not having a clutch, you have to push and hold the brake and then push the button again and it'll start. If you don't push the brake, you just end up turning the ignition off again. So you got your little piano keys here: drive, neutral, reverse, and away we go. Don't think I've mentioned anything about what this truck is, but yeah, Iveco S Way badged this one at 570 horsepower, 6x2 twin steer, air suspension all round front and back, which is the first time I've ever had a truck like that, so it's quite good. Would I say I noticed the suspension up front being air? Not really, but nothing's gone flying around inside the cab over the last few days, so maybe it does work, who knows. But anyway, let's get on the motorway. I'm not sure if it's running full horsepower or not at the minute, because this morning that the AdBlue problem that it's got has got even worse, and now it's cut back on horsepower. But when it's empty, it does accelerate quite nicely. And once you've got weight on it, however, not quite so much. In fact, there's the steep section on the M25 at around junction 8. Fully loaded up there, it slowed all the way down to about 40 miles an hour. And again, the big hill going up towards Beaconsfield on the M40, it slowed down quite a bit then as well. Despite being badged at 570 horsepower, you wouldn't really know it as such, because it seems to be lacking in the torque department, so I don't know if they've sacrificed torque to get the horsepower figure up. A bit like how motorbike engines work, they're all horsepower and no torque. Because it's definitely lacking low-end grunt. It's quite a revvy engine, you have to at the very least run it towards the top end of the green, if not off the end of it, to get any sort of useful kind of acceleration or power out of it. The engine is incredibly quiet though, which is good. Yeah, I think the MAN's one is certainly louder than this, that's for sure. The steering on this is incredibly light, to the point of almost feeling numb, really. The first couple of days it was caught me out quite a bit. You just find yourself inadvertently drifting all over the place without even realising it, because there's just not really anything in the way of feedback in the steering wheel. Reversing though, it's super easy and nice, because the steering's so light you can quite easily turn the wheel around, even at pretty much stand still to not even moving at all. There's barely any effort to turn the wheel. But yeah, cruising on a motorway like this, there's not really anything to tell you, are you turning the wheel or anything. So yeah, I personally prefer a little bit of heaviness in the steering wheel. I mean, other people might be different, they might like the light steering. But yeah, I like to have a bit of resistance when I'm turning the wheel, so that I know that it's doing what I'm telling it to and not just drifting about all on its own. As I've already said, air suspension all round, front and back. Both of these are independently adjustable off of the control pad down by the driver's side bit here. So you've got a button to activate the rear, and you can adjust that up and down, and a button to turn the front on. You can adjust that up and down, or you can have both on at the same time and jack the whole truck up and down simultaneously. Fuel economy, I've left this section till the very last day, so Friday now, and I got this truck on Sunday. I've done just shy of 1,500 miles now, 1497, and I've averaged 9 miles to the gallon that whole time. Don't know if that's the best, it maybe could be better. I know, well, my perception is that the engine has got better as the week's gone on, because yeah, it didn't feel quite as smooth and as nice as it does now. And yeah, the start of the week it had dipped down to about 8.5, a bit less maybe, and it's slowly climbed it back up as the week's gone on. So potentially that MPG figure could get higher, could be lower, I don't know. Right now, cruising empty on the motorway, it says I'm getting around anywhere from 14 to 18 miles per gallon. So potentially that could be a better figure. Yeah, it is relatively brand new, 6 months at the most, 14,000k when I picked it up. Probably, or certainly felt and acted like it hadn't really done much in the way of honest day's work when I got it. Yeah, so it's had a bit of a shock this week, and it does show because there's all manner of things have started breaking as the week's gone on. Like day 1, some AdBlue fault happened. Day 2, an ECM warning, whatever that means. And then it's been fairly quiet until today, where it's just suddenly decided that the AdBlue now is completely broken and it's going to restrict the horsepower. truck is slowly falling to pieces. That doesn't bode well for lifetime upkeep, or what they call it, uptime. Yeah, I could potentially see this breaking down a lot. Certainly in the early days, until all these kinks get ironed out, that's for sure. As for the brakes, engine brake, it's really good, really strong. It's way stronger than the MANs. I think Mercs are quite weak as well. The only thing is, despite being so strong, it's got lots of stages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a little bit excessive, I think. 3 really is all you need. Pretty strong, really strong, and that's it. So I don't know. I thought when I drove a Scania a couple of years ago and it had 5 stages to the engine brake, that was quite a lot. But 6, I don't know really why you don't need that many. You either want to stop or you want to hold the speed, really. Not really much else. I mean, if it's too strong in one, you just knock it back and forth. You don't really need that many. I don't know why. A bit of a bizarre choice for me, but that's the way it is. As for the foot brake, that does take a little bit of getting used to. It seems to have a bit of a weird dead zone to start with. You have to push it quite firmly to about halfway down, and then you start feeling, oh yeah, there's the brakes. The only other truck that reminds me of is when I first started training in the Mercedes Rigids. They had a brake that was pretty much the same. You had to push it quite hard, and in the first half of it, nothing happened. And it wasn't until the brake pedal was near the floor that finally the brakes bit and you started slowing down. This is a similar sort of thing. Don't know many other trucks that are like that. Usually they're pretty responsive. I know the MANs, you just lightly tap the brake and you'll start slowing down quite a bit. That's another thing that took a day or two to get used to. I still don't know if I'm fully used to it, because the feel of it kind of changes depending on whether you're empty or loaded as well. So the brake seems to work a bit earlier when you're emptier, and when you're fully loaded you push it and nothing really happens. Whereas like with the MAN, it's fairly consistent regardless of how heavy it is. You put your foot on the brake and it stops. Now I haven't managed to catch it on camera, but every now and then, seemingly randomly, I don't know quite why, maybe it's tied in with the sat nav or something, but you seem to get random beeps coming out at you. It does different beeps to signify different things, but it doesn't display on the dashboard what it is. So you're just left there with the truck beeping at you, kind of wondering what it's going on about. Yeah, I don't know why it does that. But I still haven't worked out when it's doing it, what for. It seems to be rather random at times. You'll go forever without it doing anything, and then you'll get a quick succession, 2, 3, 4 within a few minutes for some reason. No idea why, but yeah, maybe reading the instruction manual would help, but yeah, don't know about that one. And lastly, it readily drops the lift axle on this. Yeah, probably the lightest I know that I've been so far is about 35 tonnes gross, and it's automatically dropped the lift axle and it won't pick it back up again. It's not too bad on this because it's a twin steer, so the steering of the lift axle steers as well, so you're not exactly ripping the tyres to shreds. But yeah, compared to the MAN, that will keep its legs raised up well, pretty much accurately really. The highest weight that I've known with the MAN is about 38.5 tonnes or so, and it still hasn't dropped the lift axle. So yeah, the MAN's automatic sensor is pretty accurate, whereas this one, it's quite sensitive and it drops the lift axle pretty readily. I've known a few other trucks that do that as well. DAFs can be a bit prone to it sometimes. But yeah, I think the Volvo when I was at S&K was quite a bit sensitive as well. It would readily drop its lift axle even when it was fairly light. I think that went down to even about 33 tons at one point. It would still drop the lift axle. Don't know why they're designed to drop the lift axle so readily, but MAN seem to have got it nailed pretty good. But yeah, that's it for driving. The handling, pretty good. Behaves itself, it goes where you want it to. Yeah, like I said, nothing's gone flying in the cab when I've gone over bumps. Even with these small cubby holes that don't really have a lip on them, it's not a lip that high. And none of my tools have jumped out, which I'm a bit surprised about. If it was the MAN, it would almost certainly have. So I've had bits jumping about all over the place once I've hit bumps here and there, but again, that could be down to the air suspension absorbing the impacts pretty good. Who knows? Yeah. In final conclusion, if I can remember what I've filmed over the last few days, yeah, there's bits that I like the headlights, they're good, all the LED lights in general. Engines, not too bad, could be better, more torque certainly. What else? Sound system's good, little bits like that. Yeah, and there's bits that I don't like, namely the build quality, fit and finish, massively, particularly with the lockers, and other bits where it's apparent that money has been saved. The centre dash doesn't have much in the way of storage, certainly not as much as the MAN. Yeah, I think Mercs have quite a bit of storage space that you can use as well. Technical issues that I just keep seeming to get more and more, at least what, 3 out of 5 days now, 6. AdBlue fault, whatever ECM is. What else has happened today? Yeah, the locker's gone, and now this morning it's decided to reduce the horsepower, which, considering this truck doesn't have much in the way of torque to begin with, it's been certainly lacking all morning, that's for sure. You notice it on the hills, that's for sure. Final thoughts. Would I drive this truck as a day cab? Yeah, I probably would, not a problem. I've driven pretty much all the models that Iveco offer as in a day cab capacity, even though one of them was night trunking. It works, it's good enough, does the job. But to live in, tramp, no. It's not for me. It's lacking in certainly quality. There's bits and bobs that just aren't to my liking, and yeah, it's not for me. And based on this week that I've had, would I say that Iveco deserves the reputation they have of poor, cheap trucks? Yeah, I think they do. There's a lot that stands out that really shouldn't be happening for a truck that's 6 months old, max, or for trucks in general. Yeah, I mean, I've had the MAN for 6 months. It hasn't really had anything electronic or build quality wise go wrong with it. So yeah, it can be done. It's just that it seems to fall flat a bit with the Iveco. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the Iveco. They're not de rigueur or gospel. You can come to your own opinion if you want. But I'm going to see if I can get rid of this at the weekend and get back in my truck. because I don't want it for a second week. But on that note, until next time, see you then.